It's the $64,000 question. How to stay calm in a stressful meeting. You know, I have been in lots of meetings over the years, so I have seen it all. The good, the bad, and yes, the ugly. Today we're going to have a lot of fun because we're going to discuss some of the best practices that I've seen, and frankly, some of the ones that have been less helpful. Our goal is to avoid you becoming one of my future YouTube examples that are in the ugly category. So first, taking and naming the emotional temperature. So what do I mean by this? So you've all been there. It's the meeting where you can feel that tensions are running really high, people are getting anxious, they're getting snippy with each other, maybe there's even some name calling, and you feel your own stress levels going up. So taking and naming the emotional temperature, it's something that I've seen done on any number of occasions, and it's like a magic trick. It's basically someone in the room really just saying, as I'm observing here, right, I could feel the tension. I can feel the anxiety and the stress. And then inviting people to maybe take a few minutes and share what their emotions might be. Now, in this moment, and I've seen this happen at times where someone's like, we don't have time for that. But almost always, and in the situations that I've seen this happen, when someone says that, you could see there's at least a few people who are like,
I think that would be a good idea.
and so instead of giving attention to the person who thinks it's a waste of time, just saying something like, Maddie, I saw you nod your head. How are you feeling right now? And that person will say, I'm feeling exhausted, tired, whatever. And then giving everyone a chance to just name what those emotions are. And then being able to say, wow, so there's a lot of strong feeling. What would be helpful for us to do next? Typically, just having the time to name and notice the emotions is enough for people to say, like, you know what, I'm actually feeling better, like we can move forward. Sometimes though, right, it does require a little bit of problem solving, but the problem solving around whatever the dynamic is going to be much better once the emotions were named. So let me tell you a story involving a colleague of mine. Some years ago, she was working in a community that was trying to improve its responses to sexual assault cases. Once a month, a number of police officers, prosecutors, and nurses from a sexual assault response unit would come together for a meeting, mostly to strategize on how they could support each other better. And at the end of each meeting, my colleague would simply say, who will be in charge of bringing the snacks next time? And the group had a tradition of kind of rotating this. So on this particular moment, there was silence. And my colleague was close to saying,
I could just bring the snack.
but then had this sense. She had the sense that the silence was about something more than just people not wanting to volunteer to bring a snack. And so she said, I wonder if we could just talk about how each of us is feeling in this moment.
We have to talk about our feelings.
And suddenly, the prosecutor started tearing up, and a few of the police got really angry. And what became evident was that each party there felt a huge amount of stress because from their perspective, it was actually brave to be part of this committee. There were police officers, for example, who resented the fact that people were talking with the prosecutors and with the medical professionals. The prosecutors in the room were somehow betraying them by participating in this. And what became clear is that each of the people at the table felt like they were putting a lot of themselves into this effort and never getting appreciation from the others. So this ability to have people to share their emotions and to realize that what was really lacking was a feeling of mutual appreciation was critical to actually helping the group do its work going forward. A second tactic that I've seen be very successful in a stressful meeting is reframing either to a shared interest of the group or to progress that the group has made. So typically what can cause stress in a meeting is a sense that we've reached an impasse, that we're not going to be able to work this out. In that moment, one thing that could be really helpful is reminding the group either of the reason why they originally came together. Maybe it was to collaborate on designing a new park, or maybe it was to agree on a new business strategy, or maybe it was to resolve some really prickly conflict. But reminding people of why they came forward, and then reminding them of all the progress they made so far. Now, even if you're on your own mind, you're thinking they haven't made that much progress, being able to name a few things can be really helpful. It reminds individuals in the group that this effort isn't futile. It reminds individuals in the group that yes, this is a hard task, but we've also done some good work. And it can often shift or reframe the direction of a meeting. Last tactic that I've seen work really well is something that I call going to the balcony. So in this moment when you're feeling stressed and you see other people are feeling stressed and the temperature is going up, it's helpful if you can do this to move to a position not of almost participant, but observer. So imagine what would this dynamic look like if you were watching it in a theater, or if you were a fly on the wall, and being able to take a step back and say, so I know I've been participating in this meeting, but as I look at the dynamic, here's what I observe. I observe a lot of strong feeling. I observe that people are tired right now. I observe exhaustion, whatever it might be. Yeah, so in that moment, when you're feeling the frustration and the anger and the exhaustion and like this isn't worth it, if you're able to go to the balcony and if you're able to describe the dynamic in more neutral, almost clinical terms, it can help the group reset. Okay, so I told you I saw a lot of ugly. Let me just share 3 things you want to avoid when you're in a stressful meeting. First one, easy to say, hard to do, and that's avoid playing their game. So if the other side is using a bunch of different tactics, maybe they're rushing you, maybe they're calling names, maybe they're not listening to you, maybe they're raising the stakes. What doesn't help is to fight fire with fire. I get that that's really tempting in the moment. If you've been called a name, if someone has been dismissed, that you want to do that back. Every time I see that happen, it just leads to escalation. It just sends us backwards. The likelihood that the group is going to actually ever come to an agreement is pretty low. Even if they come to an agreement at the end of that meeting, it's unlikely they'll actually comply. And you're probably going to be back at best in the same place you were at when you started, and maybe worse. Second thing to avoid is issuing ultimatums. So this is a common thing that people will do when they're frustrated in a meeting. You know, we're not going to be able to meet next week. We really need to get this done before we're over. So what they're doing there, right, is trying to create a scarcity bias, a sense of you have my time now, but you're not going to have it later. Now, the reason why this doesn't work is whenever we're in a meeting with others, it's because we're trying to coordinate our activity. We're trying to get them to do something or to not do something. And when you issue an ultimatum, what you're essentially doing is reducing the autonomy that they have to make their own decisions. And research has shown that when someone's sense of autonomy, their sense of their own ability to make decisions is taken away, they don't just cave, they get angry. They fight back. And so I always want to avoid, if I can in a meeting, issuing ultimatums. Now, this third thing to avoid is the one that I see most often, and it's ignoring the elephant in the room. So there's stress, there's tension. You could see your boss is like losing his patience with like your colleague who always has a million questions, and you're doing the best you can to hide. Suddenly you've taken out your phone and you're like looking at text messages, or you have furtive stare, or you're looking away furtively, right? And you're thinking,
Can I have that superpower of invisibility?
all of these things don't help. If there's strong emotion, if there's stress, ignoring it will not make it go away. It will not make the time go by any faster. This brings us back right to that first point, which is naming what you're seeing, inviting a conversation about how to change the dynamic. Those are the things that work. So I'd like to think that your days of stressful meetings are over, but Probably they're not. So the next time you're heading into a stressful meeting, remember, take and name the emotional temperature. Whenever possible, reframe a stressful moment to a shared interest or to some progress that's been made. And when you see and feel the tension in the room and in yourself, try to go to the balcony and discuss from a position of neutrality and a position of being an observer. Avoid playing their game, avoid issuing ultimatums, and avoid pretending like there's nothing going on in the room. And of course, if you want to improve even more on how to deal with stress in a meeting, watch this next video, which is how to stay calm during a difficult conversation. In addition, please like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Thanks for watching. I know the best way to avoid stress. Keep watching these videos.